morning, everybody, and thanks for joining me today. So looking forward to spending some time with you. As Julie mentioned, I'm a chartered counselling psychologist by trade. Initially, I actually closed up and kind of drew a line under the counselling after 20 years of it last year, so moved into coaching. But I've always been training and facilitating workshops, particularly in the well-being areas as well. So MindWorks is my company, that's how you'll find me. And today we're just looking at that whole topic of self-care, which is, always relevant, and I think particularly relevant to anybody who's in coaching or counselling or any of those kind of helping professions. And again, particularly relevant in the time that we're in. Maybe some of you are back in the office, but I think most of you are probably still working from home there. So we're going to look at the concept of self-care because people have different reactions even to that name or title or the concept. I'd like to introduce my energy tank model, very simple model, but just something I found really useful when working with groups or individuals. And I'll give you some different resources that can be helpful, again, for yourself, for your family, or with clients. And we'll look at the positivity ratio and kind of applying self-care into how does that affect performance? What about, why is it relevant to work? All of that kind of thing. So that's a bit about what we're going to be looking at today. So I thought I'd start with two simple tools that I use all the time, whether with groups or with one-to-one. I don't know what kind of a morning you've had already. Maybe some of you are just sitting down to the desk, haven't got the kids organized. Maybe some of you have already been working hours and got half a day's work done by this stage, or it might feel like that. So either way, whatever's going on with you, with the busyness that can be going on, I thought it might be a nice idea to help you to become present by doing a couple of little short exercises. And again, the beauty of these is that they can be done anytime, anywhere, and they don't take much time out of our day or anything like that. So I find that, even busy corporates are open to these because the time factor is important. So perhaps just beginning, if you're happy enough to join me in this, perhaps just beginning by sitting kind of upright, to allow space for air to get in, because we're going to start with a breathing exercise. And this is 7-11 breathing. So it's a clinically proven exercise, deep breathing exercise. And what I would say is if you already have deep breathing exercises that you do and that work for you, then if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Go with what you know. But give this one a try just for now. And this might be handy if you don't already have a deep breathing exercise. And the idea here is that we breathe in for about the count of 7 through the nostrils, and then breathing out as if through a little pinhole for about the count of 11. If you're a perfectionist, don't get too hung up on the 7-11 and getting that perfect. The main thing here is that we want to breathe out for a little bit longer than we breathe in. And the other thing is that you don't go around breathing like this all day. And this is maybe just for 3 or 4 breaths at a time. So let's start by exhaling, so emptying the belly of any air. And then slowly in your own time breathing in. Filling up the rib cage, the lungs, the air. And then slowly through that little pinhole in the mouth, just breathing out. And feel your lungs deflating. Going to do this again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And breathing out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You might not get to 11. And then one last time in your own time. Okay, so just tuning in with yourself now and noticing how you're feeling. You may feel a slight tingling after the deep breathing. Hopefully maybe an enhanced sense of calm and presence. Just noticing whatever is present for you. As we move on now, just to our second little exercise, again, just helping you to become present. And for anybody that has difficulty with the breathing exercise, so a small percentage of people, particularly if they suffer from anxiety, will struggle with any kind of focus on the breath and will often get nearly hyperventilate when they start focusing on breathing. They get so conscious of it. So if that's an issue for you, or if you're doing that with a client and that becomes an issue, I would stop focusing on the breath and then go into the next little exercise, which is about focusing on your senses instead. And actually, I have this up on this is going up today on my Instagram and Facebook as well. So again, something that takes very short little time, but can really just calm the whole system down. So when we're stressed and the mind is going at 100 miles an hour, as it often does, certainly mine was going like that at about midnight last night in preparation for today. The way I think of it is that the mind works best when it's open like a book. And when we're stressing, or we've got 101 things going on in here, the mind starts tightening up like a closed fist. And it gets tense. And of course, when the mind is tense like that, somewhere in the body is tensing up as well. So it's very difficult to get anything in there. You end up reading the same sentence 10 times, but nothing's going in. And similarly, it's very difficult to get anything out of there. So even though you might know something, you can't access it, you can't recall it, you can't take it out. So we need these little exercises to calm the whole system down and bring kind of slow down the adrenaline and bring us down into our calm instead of releasing cortisol and going into further stress. So again, I just invite you to join me in this for a few moments. So just wherever you are sitting there, I'd like you just to take a look around you. Look at exactly whatever is in front of you. Stuff on the screen, things around you in the room, noticing light, colors, shadows. Just really allowing your attention to come into what you see, what's in front of you in this moment. And of course, you'll have lots of thoughts still passing through. And, you know, some of those thoughts might be, what is this crazy thing we're doing? And you just let those pass by. Okay, they're just thoughts. So moving now with your focus and just listening for a moment. Noticing any sounds in the background. My kids are getting rowdy. Perhaps there's silence in your house. And now moving in to becoming aware of sensations. Tuning in, for instance, to your foot or your feet, wherever they are on the floor. Maybe feeling extra pressure there. Noticing temperature. Becoming aware of your stomach. A lot of people hold stress or tension like a knot in the stomach that we're not even aware of a lot of the time. So just noticing how your tummy is doing. Just being gentle and curious with it. No judgment, whatever you're experiencing. Bringing your attention now to your breathing. Not just thinking about it, but actually tuning in and really feeling it. Feeling the rise and fall of your chest or your stomach with each in-breath and each out-breath. Moving now to taste. Probably nothing right now. And finally, just breathing in, inhaling. Notice if there's any smell. And don't forget to exhale. Okay. So again, just tuning in with yourself and notice, how are you feeling right now in this moment? And I'm going to open up the chat. I'd love to hear how you got on with those little exercises. Now, some of you might have done these before or have something very similar that you use with yourself or with your clients. I'd love to just hear how you're feeling now as a result of that, as you tune into yourself. So just maybe typing anything into chat, letting me know how you got on or if there's any questions there. Okay. So relaxed and grounded, lovely, great, calm and present. So somebody had a very busy morning much more relaxed. Yeah, so a lot of people saying that they feel really relaxed, and that is the common feedback that I would get from a group. Something very simple, and you don't have to do both of those exercises. You could just do one at a time. So it does help us to come down out of the busy head. It helps to calm down the whole body and the whole mind. And actually, that's a better way to go back into work. So I really think so. Recently, during COVID, I've been working with Connect to Coach as a volunteer. So we've been working on offering free coaching to frontliners. So I've had quite a few clients on the front line in different roles. And this is something that I teach them because, again, whether you're working and have one client coming in after another, or whether you have, if you're working a busy workplace in HR, for instance, and you might have one person coming up to you after another, or if you're in a hospital and you're a doctor and you're moving from one patient's bed to another, regardless of the situation, taking just a moment or a couple of moments in between patient beds or in between clients to just breathe, even one deep breath, and feel your feet on the floor, for example, and kind of maybe even just consciously let go of the last person before you kind of breathing and ready for the next person. So it's great to have that little conscious exercise so you're not carrying people's stuff from one person to the next, and then at the end of the day, you've got this big stack on your shoulders. So, taking time regularly throughout the day just to do those little exercises can really help prevent you getting into stress and help your well-being. Okay. So moving on to the whole concept of self-care, I'm really interested to hear, and again, I'd love you to use your chat box there. What does self-care mean to you? When you saw that this topic today was about self-care, was that, oh, good, I'm great, I really need some of that? Or was that, oh, I'm not so sure? What are your associations with self-care? Or even what kind of associations have you come across, or kind of reactions if you do, mention self-care to clients, for instance? So I'd love to hear what the association, even with those words, are, because certainly I've found that I get very different reactions to the phrase self-care, to the concept. Great. So Sinead is saying it's about making space for yourself. Karen, it's time to myself, learning to be gentler on myself, time for me, resilience. Absolutely. It's really important for resilience. Looking after myself, mind and body. Yeah, brilliant. Time to recharge, looking after well-being, minding self, feeling comfortable. Great. So these are actually, Lisa's saying, knowing what re-energizes me. I noticed that, Carl said, Caroline, I noticed that many people talk about how they don't do it. Yeah. Okay. So really, mainly really positive associations there, which is great to hear. That's why you're here. I suppose you have a positive association with the phrase. And if we look at this, these are some of the associations I think that people often have with self-care. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to just, put on a movie tonight and eat a tub of ice cream, or I'm going to eat chocolate cake and, have some wine and be nice to me. And then other associations might be, about spa days, or, maybe getting a massage, and then for other people, the association of self-care is more around, getting out for a walk, getting fresh air, doing their yoga, maybe doing some meditation. Tom has put a lovely thing in here, taking care of yourself so you can be more able to help those around you. So spot on, Tom. I'm going to be coming to something very similar to what you've just said there. So the different pictures, I suppose, just show the different associations people maybe have. Chocolate cake is looking good. Uh-oh, you're going to have chocolate cake on the brain now. So this is the question that I'd ask, is the association with self-care, is it that it's indulgence, or is it about discipline? And this is something I think you need to be aware of when you start mentioning the topic with clients, because very often I've found that people, and maybe I think often women in some ways are better at self-care, but and maybe more fond of the notion, but also I think women are also guilty of kind of putting themselves last, particularly in the kind of mommy thing, and self-care often feels selfish to people. So that's a negative connotation. And And yeah, so that you might, even before you start onto it, you might need to reframe the whole concept that self-care isn't selfish. It's about looking after yourself first and foremost before you can help anybody else. And that whole idea of the oxygen mask, that if you're on an airplane and it becomes an emergency situation and the oxygen mask comes down, it wouldn't matter whether you have a baby on your lap and your elderly parent beside you, you need to put your own oxygen mask on first, or you can't help anybody around you, just like Tom is saying there. Um, so sometimes even before you go into any practices, you do need to maybe reframe. And in fact, now what I would see in my own practice of self-care over the years is that self-care in many ways is a discipline. It's about being disciplined to look after yourself every day. It's about, sometimes going out for that walk even though you don't feel like it, or the jog, or doing the exercise, or, saying no to the chocolate cake occasionally. So, those kind of things require a discipline. And of course, it's good to have the treats and the indulgence as well. But we often, need discipline in equal measure, maybe, so it's not all about indulgence, and it is moving towards health instead of away from health. So, discipline may actually help for somebody who thinks self-care is selfish. Even reframing it as discipline can maybe help change their mind around it, and something to be achieved or attained instead of worked towards. So just on that line then, I'd like to share with you my model of the energy tank. So this is something I suppose, became clear to me having worked 20 years one-to-one with clients, particularly in the mental health arena, depression, anxiety, and lots of stress. And so the way I would think of it, quite simply, is that we all have an energy tank. And so when we're feeling good, that tank is full. And we all know what that feels like. Hopefully you all are familiar with the sense of, having a full tank, things are going smoothly, life is good, you're feeling kind of in top form, maybe ticking off the list, feeling productive, getting stuff achieved, all of that. And similarly, we all know what it feels like when our tank is a little bit running on empty, unfortunately. So when the water level gets too low and we start to feel stressed or distressed, we might feel anxious, maybe low mood. And the risk here is that we go into burnout if we stay at a low water level. So the thing about this energy tank, as you can see from the very simple drawing here, is that it's a little bit like a Burko boiler, those big Burko boilers that have a tap towards the bottom. And that tap represents the outflow, okay? And the outflow really of the water there represents the demands that you have in your life at any particular moment in time. So the busier you are and the more demands that you have in your life, the more is going to be leaving your tank through that tap. And for most of us, that tap is on and open and flowing away there all the time. So we continuously, unless you're really looking after yourself, your water level can drop really quickly. Now, say you're pretty good at looking after yourself, and your water level's pretty steady and you're feeling okay. And then something else happens, like coronavirus. Suddenly everything's changed. You have to work from home. Like for me, what happened at the beginning was all my work was cancelled. It looked like, with the type of organisations that I work with, because I do a lot of work with, for example, Royal College of Physicians Ireland. I do wellness matters workshops with doctors there for them. When they cancelled me, it's like, gosh, that's a college. They're not going to be reopening till next October. I also do a lot of work with UCD. So similar story. It looked like I wasn't going to have any work till next October. And so I had to pivot pretty quickly. So, you've all been impacted in different ways. And when something like that hits, or there's illness all of a sudden, or there's a something changes, life throws a curveball. And so what happens then is that your water level starts dropping rather quickly because there's an extra set of demands. There's a bigger rush out of that tap. So there's a couple of important things, really. First of all, we need to be doing stuff to fill our tank all the time. And that's our self-care, okay? So, in order to keep your tank at a nice level, there needs to be really, at least as much going in as there is going out. But perhaps the most important piece about this is that the more you have going out, is that that's the time when you need to be doing your most in self-care. You need to up your game in self-care. So what actually happens is that when we get really busy, our self-care and all our healthy practices tend to get thrown out the window. So diet, exercise, and sleep are the basics, the foundations of self-care, of looking after ourselves. And yet, even with those basics, if you think about the times that you're stressed and you're feeling under pressure, first of all, your sleep can be very impacted very quickly. Maybe you're finding it difficult to get to sleep, or you're awake during the night, brain going 100 miles an hour, or you wake at the wee hours of the morning. Diet, we start going for the chocolate cake, or maybe drinking the wine at night to help us to sleep, and then you're waking up during the night because you've had a glass of wine or a beer or whatever it might be. So diet can quickly go out the window. We just don't have the time, we're too busy, there's nothing in the fridge, I'll just get a takeaway, all of that kind of stuff. And exercise, well, we're way too busy and way too tired, and there's no way I could fit that in. So the very stuff that protects us and keeps us well and fills the tank is the first stuff we throw out the window. No time for it. Which means that generally at the time when we have an extra stressor to deal with, we're also doing less. And what happens is our tank starts emptying and we start going downhill, sliding down that slippery slope. And again, you know, if the water level gets too low, if it goes below the tap level, that Burker boiler is boiling dry. And so that's where you're starting to see physical and mental illnesses appearing. And we want to prevent that, okay? So quite simply, there's two approaches to this, really. One, you can see if there's any way of slowing down the tap. Are there any things that I could, you know, delegate, outsource, you know, get somebody else to do? Many of you are probably self-employed, like myself, and you know, there's a whole bus of jobs there. There's a seat for, you know, social media and marketing, and there's accounts to be done, there's admin work to be done, and all of that thing. And you're wearing all those hats or sitting in all those seats and still trying to drive the bus. So, you know, it may be about finding, you know, even if it's a sick parent, for example, if you've got siblings, can other people help out? Can you do a rota? So getting really practical with, you know, how could you slow down some of the demand there? How can you maybe outsource or get some help, get some support? And then the other thing is that once your tank is running low, even if you take a holiday and completely turn off the tap and say, right, I'm not working for the next 2 weeks, you still need to fill the tank or you're not going to feel any better. So you still need to be doing things to fill the tank. And as I mentioned, you know, well, okay, I suppose the important thing here is that it's not about doing, you know, the big holiday thing every now and again, or, you know, running a marathon on a Sunday kind of thing. It's actually the drip, drip, drip effect that helps. Constantly doing little small practice, a little bit like your breathing exercise that we did, like the 5 senses exercise that we did, like just doing regular exercises, getting out into the fresh air, eating healthy food, at least getting your nutrition in, even if you have the chocolate cake as well, getting your 5 a day. So if you're doing those kind of little things all the time as a habit, that's drip, drip, drip into the tank. So you constantly have something coming into your tank, and that keeps you at a good level. So very simple little idea, really. But even though it's really simple as an idea, most of the time we're not doing this. And I suppose as somebody in my training, particularly in counseling psychology, I think, you know, self-care was something that was hammered into us, that you can't give from an empty cup. If you're trying to help your clients and you need to have energy to give a webinar, for instance, or work with a group, if your tank is running on empty, you have nothing to give. So you have to be, you know, it's our responsibility in the type of role that we have in our jobs. It's our responsibility to keep our tank at a good level, that's so we can have something to give there to people when they come into us. So we need to first and foremost look after ourselves, and then we're in a better position to help others. So it's a responsibility that we have. Self-care, I would say, is a responsibility that we have to ourselves and to those around us. Everybody benefits when you can look after yourself. So what I'd like you to just think about now, I'm just going to move on here. I'm going to just stop sharing and put you into breakout rooms. I'd like you to have a little think, a little quick discussion about let's see, we've 24 to 8. I'm going to put you into breakout rooms just for 5 minutes. And you'll be in 3s or 4s. I'd like it just to have a short discussion. What are you already doing to fill your tank, and what one thing could you improve on? So if, it's often stuff that we used to do. There's a lot of stuff that wasn't available to us through lockdown, unfortunately. Maybe you like to go into the gym and it was closed and it's still not reopened. So maybe then exercise fell by the wayside, just as an example. So what could you be doing instead? How can you take charge? How can you take responsibility? So kind of recognizing where your tank is at right now and what could you do to help keep that tank at a good level. So in your groups, I'd like you just to have a quick little discussion about, and share ideas and brainstorm really about what you do and what you can do to fill your tank, and maybe identifying one thing for yourself. So if there's any questions, type them into chat, but otherwise right now I'm going to send you off for 5 minutes. Okay, I think we have everybody back. Welcome back, everybody. I know it was a short few minutes when there's a few of you to discuss. So yeah, I'd love to hear how you got on. Feel free to type into chat and let us know. And actually, maybe what I'll do is come back to that piece a little bit later before we finish up to help you to think about what you want to bring forward from today and from that discussion even. So just moving on a little bit, I wanted to share some resources with you that I found really helpful in working one-to-one. This is a self-care wheel, which just has so much in it. And again, you can see the source there. And Julie has a copy of these PDFs, so they'll be sent out or they'll be available to you. So this is something I just found online, but I found helpful when helping people to kind of think about all the different areas of self-care and the different needs that we have and whether they're being met or not. So sometimes we might be very good at physical self-care, for example, but maybe not nurturing ourselves emotionally, or, depending on who you're working with, there'll be different things to look at. And so it's really about getting the balance and looking at that whole wheel, maybe finding something in each section that you're doing or that you can introduce to look after yourself. The other thing that I would say is that there's 101 things that we could be doing, and that can just put us into overwhelm, particularly if somebody's in a low place and hasn't been looking after themselves. So I'd always encourage people just to start with one thing and build up that habit and get that right before they start a second thing, because what people tend to do is kind of go, right, that's it, I'm getting up at 6 a.m. and I'm going to meditate and then I'm going to go for my walk, and and a week later everything is collapsed and then they feel like a total failure and they're in a worse position than when they started. So just helping them to get real, and for yourself. I remember years ago kind of thinking, oh my God, I should be doing all this stuff and I have to be walking the walk, and I started about 5 things at once, and of course that just sets you up for failure. So really just doing one thing at a time and really taking the time to incorporate that into your lifestyle, which I would say takes months. It's 66 days to build a new habit. So how many times do you fall off that wagon in the 66 days and have to start from day one? It takes a long time. So really just, if it was mindfulness, for example, you wanted to set up a practice, it could possibly take you months to really get comfortable in that practice. This is something that I found really good and people respond to really well. I shared this on LinkedIn and wrote a post about it early on in coronavirus, and it had a huge reaction. And a lot of people said, they came back to me and said, yeah, they've used it with themselves, they've used it with their family. I've used it with clients over the years, particularly when people's normal routine is kind of put out of place. So when people are at home and they're not in the normal routine of kind of get up, go to work, commute, all of that stuff, which is all of us recently, isn't it? So all it is putting the days of the week across the top, and you can use it really to schedule or to plan your self-care in each area during the week. Particularly, if somebody's in kind of a low place, this can be really helpful. It's based on the idea that we have basic needs, and when those needs are not met, we go into stress or distress. And The basic needs that are covered here are the body care, which is diet, exercise, and sleep that we already talked about, achievement or accomplishment, connection with others, and enjoyment. We need to be meeting each of those needs every day. And if you didn't get to tick off, do something to meet that, one of those needs today, then you definitely need to be focusing on that more tomorrow. And so, of course, with physical distancing, the connection has been more difficult for us. I don't think that the phrase socially distancing is really apt. I think we should call it physical distancing, because we still need the social connections. It doesn't matter how introvert you are, you still need to connect with others. So it's important, to find other ways to do that through these times. And achievement, if somebody's off work, for instance, they may not be getting a sense of achievement, or if your work is such that, just to give you an example, when I was working with a lot of people who are depressed, there may not be a sense of achievement after my day of back-to-back clients. And so it's important to find a sense of achievement in some other way, or accomplishment. So maybe that you got your desk cleared, or recently for me it has been, if I get into the cold sea, that's a great sense of achievement. So whatever it might be that gives you that sense of achievement. Okay. So again, something that's helpful maybe with family, with kids who are maybe out of sorts, helping to make sure that these needs are being met, because if our needs aren't being met, we go into stress or distress. Okay, so I'm just keeping an eye on time because I know it's flying by. If there are questions as we go, if I'm missing something or if you have comments, do type them into chat and I'll come back to them at the end, okay? So the last section really that I wanted to work on with you today is the importance of positive emotions. I've been a bit of a fan of positive psychology over recent years, and mindfulness, and I work with emotional intelligence. They've been my areas really. And while I think it's really important to kind of put in the little caveat there that difficult emotions, I was a therapist, of course I worked with difficult emotions, and we do need to process them, and we're all going to have emotions that we don't like. It's probably the ratio that's important, and that exact ratio is debated. Barbara Friedrichsen would be the big contributor in this area, positive emotions and the positivity ratio. It's often put out there as we need about 5 positive emotions to every 1 negative emotion in order to be thriving. To be well, you'd need, I think it's 3. And if you have just 1 positive emotion to every negative emotion, that actually can look like depression. Okay, so depression isn't necessarily the total absence of positive emotions, but we're aiming generally for about 5 to 1 to be in a really positive place. So that's not the absence of negative emotions. We're all going to have them, but we because we tend to fly through the positive emotions and bat them off. Oh, this whole thing, when praise comes our way or encouragement or anything like that, we tend to bat it off quite quickly. Whereas if somebody says something negative to us, it's right in there, and we could spend hours wallowing around in that negativity. So I have found this really helpful when working with clients. It's actually a physical exercise that I would do. I can't do that with you today when I'm not in person. The idea here is about recognizing the emotions in their different place. So if we look at the top right hand square, what we're talking about there is high energy emotions that are positive emotions. So everything on the right hand side is positive emotions. So when we're feeling high energy positive emotions, examples might be excitement, might be motivation, might be complete joy, elation. It may be just challenge, might be high energy excitement for somebody, or positive for somebody. So that's our performance zone. That's when we're in good performance. And if you ask people in a workplace, where on this grid do you want to be? They're going to point at the performance zone. That's where I want to be. I want to be performing. I want to be in that high energy place. And that's where most people would perceive that their workplace wants them to be. Their organization wants them to be performing. But here's the thing. You can't stay in the performance zone. You can't last there for long. If you try staying in the performance zone for too long, you will get bounced out of there over into the negative emotions, potentially into survival or eventually burnout. Okay, so survival is when there's negative emotions, but you still have some energy. And that's often when people are kind of dangerous in an organization because maybe they're really angry and they still have enough energy to cause trouble. Or there's a lot of resentment. There may be, talking, stirring the pot, all of that kind of stuff in that zone. Or there maybe just high frustration for people. So people are really struggling when they're in that survival zone. And then when they get into exhaustion and just can't wag, that's when we're into burnout. And very often then they're off work, they're on sick leave. So we want to, if we apply this to the workplace, we want to avoid kind of getting into those places. Now, of course, we're going to feel emotions from every one of those boxes at different times throughout the day. But again, it's where are you predominantly? So coming back to performance, because people want to be performing well, they want to feel good. The important thing here is that if you want to maximize your performance, you actually need to be coming down regularly into the relaxation zone. So the relaxation zone is where it's lower energy positive emotions. So things like just contentment, maybe satisfaction, calm, all of those kinds of emotions would come in there generally to the positive energy, positive low energy. So we need relaxation. So this is where self-care comes in, to performance, to our effectiveness, to our productivity. If we're not coming down into relaxation, if we're skipping that zone, then we will get bounced out of performance over the other side where we don't want to be. I hope that's making some sense to you. I suppose I find this very helpful for particularly kind of workplaces to appreciate and understand how, it is important to take lunch times. It is important to, finish on time and not be working and putting in loads of extra overtime hours, because actually performance starts going downhill. We know that. This comes originally from sports psychology. Some of this research comes from Sean Acker, another positive psychologist. When your brain is in positive as opposed to negative or stress or even neutral, and I think in Ireland we spend a lot of time in neutral where we're just, sure, we're grand, and God forbid that we'd be, feeling actively positive. But when you allow yourself to go into that positive high energy place, you're more intelligent, you're better problem solver, you're more innovative, you're more creative, you've better ideas coming, better solutions coming, and so your performance can improve by up to 37%. You're just operating and firing on all cylinders, tanks full, and you're all go. So it's probably the most important thing we can do, whatever it takes to keep ourselves in a positive mind state. And so for me, over the years, I've built up practices, getting up slightly earlier to do my meditation so that I get my mind into the right place before I begin my workday. Before I meet my kids, generally was how it started, because that used to be the hardest time of the day. The kids pulling out of me in the morning and not wanting to go to school and not wanting to get dressed, and me trying to run and get everything done. So it just helps me center and slow down and exercise, all of the things, the self-care practices. So just to finish up, and I'm going to just do this little exercise, just a little kind of, we're going to do it just personally, and then I'll come to any questions that might be in chat. So if you have questions or comments or anything, do let me know, put them into chat there as we go. So one way of kind of rewiring your brain to experience more, and build up the positivity ratio is to have a gratitude practice. And it's actually quite easy to incorporate, but again, it's about building up the habit. If you feel grateful just occasionally for something, that's nice, but it's not really going to make a difference in your brain, to the neurology. So really what you want to do is, quite easily actually, is every time you go to bed at night, just think of 3 things that you're happy with or that you're grateful for. But here's the important thing. It's not enough to just think grateful thoughts. You need to also bring up the feeling of appreciation. So that's then, I suppose it's creating change at a deeper level. So when you can bring up the feeling in the body, and as well as think the thoughts, then you start to impact on yourself when you're doing that on a regular basis. Even if it's only 3 minutes a day, okay, it will start making an impact. So if you don't like the phrase gratitude, just think of it as appreciation, as thankfulness. It's that feeling that comes, we all hit it spontaneously every now and again, where it's, sometimes if I'm driving down the N11 and I live in Greystones, and you've got blue sky and the sun is shining and the sea is in the difference and the distance, and you have the mountains, it's like this sense of well-being can sometimes come upon you. Now, knowing all of this stuff, what I do is I use that time and I think of all the things I'm grateful for to really expand and roll around in the good feeling for a time, because it's very easy to roll around in the bad feelings. So let's just do it. I'd like you to think about one thing that you're happy about today. One thing that you're happy about. We're at the middle of the week. It's Wednesday. Forecast is good. It's dry. You can get out for a walk after this. What one thing are you happy about? I'm trying to bring up the feeling, trying to connect in with yourself there. And now I'd like you to bring to mind one person or creature, could be a pet, that you're grateful for. Somebody that you feel thankful for quite easily. Somebody that you can connect into the sense of love that you have. And again, really importantly, just bringing up that feeling. And lastly now, just bring to mind one thing you have to look forward to. Maybe it's the weekend, maybe there's chocolate cake. What might that be? One little thing. And I think, again, that's been more difficult for us recently. So it's really important to notice the little things and have something even small to look forward to. And just notice how you're feeling now as you bring up that sense of just gratitude, and that there's always something good in your life. Even if you've had a really crap day, there's something that you can be thankful for. And even if all of those, crap feelings are there, it's important to acknowledge them, and it can still help us to spend even just 3 minutes focusing on what's going well, focusing on what we have, whether it's health focus or whatever it might be. Okay, so before you run away, and I'm aware of the time there, thank you so much for staying with me. I'd like you just to think about what one thing are you going to take from today? And it may be from the little group chat that you had earlier. It may be just an awareness that has come up. It may be a new kind of resolution for yourself, right? That's it. I'm back into the exercise or back into the meditation or whatever it might be. What one thing would you take from today? And I'm just going to come out of this so I can see chat and see if there's any questions for me here. So Lisa's saying creativity and being creative, and also taking time to sit in nature and just be, that they're really important to her well-being. So I'd love to hear from some others. What one thing, what's your commitment to yourself that so you'll have made use of this 50 minutes this morning? The energy tank from Shawnee, great. Yeah, so look after your energy tank. Even just as a quick check-in, where are, you don't need to tell me now, but just for yourself, just checking in with yourself. Where's your energy tank at right now? What is the water level at? Somebody else saying a commitment to be more disciplined about sleep. Yeah, we all need good sleep habits. Some good reminders: physical well-being, treating myself as I advise somebody that I love. Yeah, exactly. Self-care wheel and the base plan will both be sent out to you. The PDFs will be available. So, doing those little things every day to fill the tank. Get back out walking. Absolutely. Yeah, no excuses. We can walk. We're so lucky. Think of Spain and Italy. You couldn't do that for so long. I felt huge appreciation that I was here in Ireland, where at least we could get outside. And the weather was so good at that time. Okay. So loads of comments there. Hopefully you've all got one thing anyway, even if you don't remember all of it, even if you didn't like all of it, that's absolutely fine. But hopefully you'll all take one thing with you from today and put that into practice and integrate and look after yourselves, folks. Thank you so much for joining me. If you'd like to keep in contact, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm now, after many years of resistance, coronavirus has pushed me into Facebook and Instagram presence. So there's lots of ways you can connect to me or connect through the website. So thank you. Lovely to meet you all, and do take care.